Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Taiwan Jabela. Let's quickly look at the front page of today's Namibian Sun. In this segment tonight, we are joined by Mr. Henk Mudge. He's president of the Republican Party. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
good to be here.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about you are a veteran politician of our country. You've been in that space for so many years. What got you into politics, and what kind of influence and impact were you seeking when you first joined?
To be quite honest, I never wanted to be in politics.
Yeah.
I grew up obviously in a family involved in politics, and then when was it, in the beginning of the 90s, after independence, I was asked to make myself available as a regional councillor candidate for Windhoek West. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at that stage I thought, it's not a full-time position, so I'll do it. Mm-hmm. Basically just to see if one can make a contribution, any kind of contribution. Obviously involved with the DTA Central Committee. And then I was a little bit disappointed in the manner in which the DTA carried itself after independence.
Yeah.
There were many accusations made against the leadership. My father left, I think, in 1993. Mm-hmm. He resigned. Then he went farming permanently.
Yeah.
And I stayed on. The Republican Party at that stage was basically just an alliance in the DTA. With the DTA, and but I was really getting upset about, as I said, the way in which the DTA leaders, I felt, was not really concerned about the well-being of our supporters. Mm-hmm. And you could see it in the results of the elections after independence. Mm-hmm. The DTA getting less and less seats in Parliament, and then we started to talk about it, but then beginning of 2001, I started negotiations and discussions with former leaders, former members of the Republican Party, which obviously before independence in the DTA were obviously more whites, because we had a lot of different parties represented in the DTA.
Yes.
So I started to talk to them, and then we agreed that we need to revive the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. And we had a Congress, and then we decided to leave the DTA. Mm-hmm. Because what was happening at that stage was not what we wanted in the Republican Party since our formation in 1977. I mean, we were very much concerned about reconciliation. Mm-hmm. Our main concern was reconciliation of the peoples of Namibia. Yeah. Apart from the apartheid fiasco that we were not happy with, that is why we left the National Party in 1977. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to play a role and to do our best to reconcile the people in Namibia, and we just felt that it was not happening. So that is why we felt we should leave, which we did. I was not really interested in becoming involved in the leadership of the party. So at the first Congress, we elected somebody that I nominated, and I was asked to make myself available as the vice president. And then soon after that, we were basically at that stage moving out of the DTA. And at that stage, it became clear that the person who was elected as the president, he was involved with the DTA as the governor in the Arab region, and then it became clear that he was not prepared to resign from the DTA. So I basically became the president of the Republican Party by default. And then, since then, it is. It may sound arrogant if one say that, but I always felt that we could make a difference. There was various congresses where I wanted to resign. Our congresses were mostly represented by black people. We will come to the whites later. And I must say, for what we tried to do, it was for me, I was always elected unanimously. And for me, it was really a great honor to be elected by black people as the president of their party. And so that makes it difficult if you just want to leave politics. I was a lot of times really fed up that I wanted just to go. But I mean, we are a young democracy, and I just felt, that every one of us should make some sacrifices. I made a lot of sacrifices. I'm a civil engineer. I'm a property developer, and I had to make a lot of sacrifices. But I'm not. Don't feel bad about that. I'm not disappointed. But I think the time will come now soon, where I will have to make a decision. I mean, I'm not getting younger, and I've got a family. You neglect your family to a large extent when you're involved in politics, and I would like to spend some more time in the business and also in the family.
Definitely. So in DTA, when you say that you didn't think that the party represented the aspirations of its members, are you referring to white members in particular, that you felt maybe that white members of the party were no longer being looked after as it were in the past, or what was the... No, not at all. I think during the days that we were part of the DTA, there was a very strong support of the white community for them, and also during election time campaigns, financial contributions and so on. No, it's about the grassroots. The Republican Party has always been concerned about the grassroots level. Even if you look at our candidates that we put forward these days, and not these days, throughout, mostly grassroots people or representing, mostly representing the grassroots level. And that was what worried me, is that, our people are not necessarily ignorant, but especially the grassroots, they're not that knowledgeable about politics and things. And so you go into campaigns and you promise them certain things. You will do this and you will do that. And then after the election, you cannot honor your promises, especially in our case after independence, when SWAPO had quite a good majority, increasing it after every election. So I just felt that the people were neglected, and I don't know. I don't really know the reason why, but I think people are always complaining and accusing politicians of being dishonest,
greedy, only interested in their own self, own well-being. And I do not necessarily want to say that that was the case, but to a certain extent. You know, you got the feeling that the moment people are being elected to parliament, then they relax. Then they've achieved what they wanted to achieve, and so they sit there, they're called honorable, they receive a salary and pension and medical aid, and so then they're happy. But the people on the ground were still looking for leadership and for guidance, and I thought and I felt at that stage they were not getting it.
Definitely. Now, the DTA, for which you were part of, and of course the Republican Party, have a history, and there's always this huge debate about the ideologies of the party. The 1975 to 1977 Tunhala Conference is seen by many as having resulted in a formation that wanted to carry forth the legacy of apartheid. Is that a correct analysis? And if yes, why was apartheid important at the time?
You know, I'm always surprised when I hear that. My father, who started, maybe just to recap a little bit, he was obviously part of the National Party government in Namibia as a very young person. And he went to visit the United Nations once, I think it was in '73. With South Africa, he was invited to join their representative there, and when he came back from there, he just realized that there is no way that South Africa, and we must realize South Africa was in charge of Namibia at that stage. Yes. They was a mandate holder, so they were basically ruling Namibia. My father came back and he just realized that it just cannot work. There is no way that apartheid can work. So he then asked the Prime Minister at that stage, Mr. John Vorster, whether he could start to talk to the black community, especially the different ethnic groups and their leaders. And it was done in great secrecy in the beginning. Started to talk to Chief Clemens Kapoor, who was a great fighter for independence and also for Namibia to decide on its own future, and petitioner of Namibia at that time, Southwest Africa, at the United Nations. So he started to talk to Chief Kapoor, and they found one another very quickly. My father was very serious that apartheid must go. And then when he started to talk to these leaders, the obvious result of that is that they must come together. Yes. So that they can discuss what need to be done. And even at that stage, when it was decided that they would come together, they invited SWAPO also to join. SWAPO was invited, but they wouldn't come. They were not interested. And then they got together, formed, that was a Turnhala conference. Yes. And what happened was that the black leaders, and my father also, they started to think about the future. And the first thing that you think about is a constitution. Yeah. You know, what do you do first? You decide we're going to write a constitution. Yeah. And the National Party at that stage, of which my father was a part of, some of the members were getting worried because that was not the intention for this to go that far. And then the problem started in the Turnhala conference. There was accusations that the National Party had some sort of a constitution or an agreement already drawn up and in the drawer, just to give it to the people to decide yes or no. Yeah. And it got to the point where my father realized that there is no way that he can carry on with that any longer with them, because they were not honest. They were not honest with the black leaders and the other people involved in the Turnhala conference. And then he resigned from the National Party. And he started the Republican Party. Now that is something that should give a very good indication that his idea at that stage was that we must become a republic. That's why we were called the Republican Party. We could have been called Democratic Party or whatever, but we were called the Republican Party. And then directly after that, a month after that, the different leaders that were represented in the Turnhala conference decided that they should form a formation, an alliance, and then they called it the Democratic Turnhala Alliance, a DTA. Obviously, some people, the UDF, were outside and so on and so forth. But that is where the DTA started, and I can tell you, in all honesty, there was no way that the South African government was involved at all in the Turnhala conference formation. Not at all. I think they financed it probably, but the idea came from my father and the other leaders, the other traditional leaders in the country who were representing their communities. So, and also after that, I hear that people say that the DTA was a puppet of South Africa. If I can tell you the fights that we had with South Africa, especially my father, with especially P.W. Botha and the war that was going on at the border, and the way that they behaved, you know, damaging and whatever the property of the people, and killing people left, right and center, even in villages, you know, driving with their Caspers through. There were serious fights on that. And in the end, it was as such that the communication between the DTA, my father, and the South African government to a large extent were just non-existent.
But in that case, Mr. Mudge, how do you explain again for our viewers the fact that leaders involved in the DTA government at the time, I mean, there was something called the DTA government, there was a
it's actually transitional government, and then there was interim government.
So I mean, is it not collaboration when you have Obama administration, for example, you have ministers in the Obama administration representing the DTA government, which essentially was a branch of the main national government of South Africa at the time?
Well, you must remember, South Africa was still in charge at that stage.
Yes.
They remained in charge of Namibia until 1990.
Yes.
So whoever and whatever happened in Namibia, the Namibians could not change it without an agreement with South Africa.
Yeah.
And obviously, and that is also something that the people must also remember, that I did not mention, is in after the breakup of the Turnhala conference and the formation of the DTA, the South African government was very worried about the perception of the white people in Namibia. What do they think? Because obviously, if they would have been seen as neglecting the interests of the white people in Namibia, it would have had a serious influence for that National Party government in South Africa. But they were worried, and then they said, but to show the support of the different political parties, we can have an election. So that election took place in 1978. That was the first one-man, one-vote election in Namibia. Again, SWAPO was invited to take part in that election, but they didn't accept it. And then the election took place. 80% of the Namibians voted, and 80% of those who voted for the DTA. After that, the people again wanted, the DTA and the other people again wanted to start to write a constitution. And South Africa then pleaded with them not to go further. They could not declare UDI. because South Africa was under serious pressure from the outside world because of the apartheid system, and then they said that we could form, I think at that stage, an interim government.
Yeah.
And then what they did was they allowed those Namibians who were part of the DTA and the other parties to form a government except education and defense. They said they want to be in charge of that. And I must say, I mean, you take what you can at that stage. You can be accused of having collaborated with South Africa because you accepted that. We didn't accept anything. At that stage, we were trying to take as much as we can from them. And I think that interim government and the government of national unity and whatever did well at that stage. I mean, they could only do that much because they were still, South Africa was still in control, but I think they did well. And again, there was no way that the DTA has been accused of being puppets of South Africa. I can repeat that over and over and over again. That was a lie. They got to 1982. You remember when they signed that program of principles, 82 principles, and I think it was Lusaka.
Yeah.
Again, SWAPO was invited to come and to negotiate with the internal parties. And at that stage, and that's on record where President Nyoma said they're not interested in the democratic elections, they want to take over Namibia by force. And he said it, and it's on record. So in other words, and this is also one of the things that's so sad for us now, and we will talk about that in the coming week or so in the budget debate also. That is so sad. You know, the one thing that people also don't realize is when the war started, the border war, and with Plan on the other side, South Africa on this side, at that stage, SWAPO was seen as a communist organization.
Yes.
With the communist parties like Cuba, like the Russians and the East Germans.
Which was going to bring me to the next question, to say, at that time, as a younger, relatively young man, that time, getting active in politics, what was your perception of SWAPO? Was it were they fighting a just cause, or did you think that they were just anarchist people who were out there?
It was very difficult for two reasons. The one is we were told, and from what you could read and see, it was a communist organization that wanted to take over the country and the government in the country, and that obviously that was one thing that we were not interested in. We didn't want that to happen. On the other hand, people were fighting for the independence of Namibia. So you want independence, but you don't want a communist regime. And that was a problem. And this is something that played out very badly in the end, where South Africa convinced the people of Namibia that we were fighting a communist regime or somebody who wanted to come and establish a communist government in Namibia. And that is why such a lot of black people, and I'm not saying black people, it's black people, white people, they joined the South African Territory Force and Kufut to fight against the communists. And nowadays, and not nowadays, but after independence, they were accused of having fought against their own brothers, and that was war. But they were fighting against the communists, not necessarily against their own brothers. It was. You must remember, it was the Russians, it was the East Germans, it was Cubans, and that is what they fought. They fought to basically prevent Namibia to become a communist country.
Just for my own interest, while you are on that one, sorry I'm interrupting you, Mr. Mudge. What was wrong with communism, in your view at the time?
Well, you know, if you see what happened in Russia and in all the other communist countries, the people didn't have any say. If you see what happened in East Germany, we had friends, good German friends who had families in East Germany, and if you heard what went on there, I mean, it was atrocious. The people had no say. And this is exactly what we wanted to change in Namibia, because the black people in Namibia also have very little say before we started the Turnhala conference. And this is exactly what we wanted to change. And obviously, you know, with the media and that, they probably made communism a bigger monster than it really was. But I mean, the fact that communism fell to a large extent in the world in 1990, 89, 90 is maybe a good example that the people who were involved got to the stage where they said enough is enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sad. Today it's very sad that you have people who really wanted to defend their country against so-called communist onslaught. and South Africa was very good, SWAPO, with the way in which they marketed and actually intimidated and indoctrinated people and people's minds. And
Yeah. And in hindsight, today, with do you think SWAPO was justified to fight that war in the manner that they did, or do you think they were still terrorists, communist terrorists, if you like?
No. I know a lot of those people who fought in the war today. What I'm unhappy with as a Namibian, if I listen to the hardship of the people who fought in that war for SWAPO, is that the leadership was sitting all over the world in hotels, casual, and they were well looked after, and I don't know who sponsored them, but it went well with the SWAPO leadership. But the poor guys who were fighting were the guys who really suffered, and they were used. Okay, they wanted Namibia, and they were also told by SWAPO, they were told as our people inside Namibia were told by South Africa. They are fighting for a just cause. In their case, absolutely. But you must just remember that they had opportunities, SWAPO, the leadership, had opportunities to negotiate and sit down with the people in Namibia to work out some sort of a solution that would have prevented that war. And the question still remains, why didn't they accept it? But that answer basically came in '82 when Mr. Nyoma said that they're not interested in a democratic solution. Why not? Why not a democratic solution? Why did they want to take it over by force, Namibia?
Because the terms were not friendly, maybe. The terms that were presented were still in favor of the status quo.
Who?
No, the proposed...
No. The parties inside Namibia, the DTA and other parties like the UDF, SWANO, those parties were quite happy to go and for us to have independence. They were. I mean, that was what we were waiting for. That is what they wanted. Yeah. That is why SWAPO was invited also to attend negotiations which they didn't want to do, and that is their right to do so. All I'm saying is, if you also speak to people who were part of that war from SWAPO's side. They went over because they really wanted to have independence. But the people inside Namibia also wanted independence. Yeah. So it's just such a shame that they could not get together and work it out. That could have saved thousands of people's lives. And I think we could have been independent much earlier than what eventually happened, because eventually the date for independence was basically decided by the United Nations and the Western Five.
Yeah, indeed. Just for interest's sake, Mr. Mudge, as we wind up this interview, do you consider yourself, given your role and your ideals for which you fought, not through the barrel of the gun, but of course through advocacy and any other means that you used, do you by any chance consider yourself a freedom fighter in your own right?
Yes.
You consider
I'm a comrade.
You're a comrade.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult to explain. Directly after independence, I think we were a bit fed up, with SWAPO, because I mean, they were obviously very happy, won the elections, but we were quite fed up with the lies being spread by them about the DTA, and that we were conniving with South Africa and puppets of South Africa, and that was not the case at all. We were not fighting for South Africa and with South Africa. We were fighting for the Namibian people, which were 80, 85, 90% black people. And we were fighting and doing what we did at that stage. Not me necessarily, I came in much later, but really tried to do something that would benefit the black people of this country. And then, so it was a bit hard after that, and even maybe today, if you hear people saying that. But in the end, you know, you've got to live with your own conscience. And my conscience is clean. I wanted to leave politics a long time ago, and I will still maybe hang around for a while. But I'm just doing that to see and to make sure that if I'm needed somewhere to make some sort of a contribution, that I can do it. And also to educate the whites and the blacks in my party. You know, we've got a serious problem. Forget about the rest of Africa. We've got a serious problem in Namibia, and I can speak to my people directly. I'm not a very good diplomat when it comes to our congresses, because I can speak to them very straight and direct, because they know me, they know I'm not a racist at all. But you know the problem that we have in Namibia, and I can say that today to you, our black people, I mean, obviously, what happened in the past is unacceptable. It should never have happened. We should never have had apartheid. The black people in Namibia should have had a say in this government long time ago. But it happened. But the one thing that and I'm on a fairly big WhatsApp group of a lot of people, Swapus and Itula Swapus and Swapus and other people, and I read the comments, and some of them understand this, and they also comment on this. But if there's one thing that if I can do something today in Namibia, if somebody say to me, okay, you can have one wish.
Yeah.
Only one wish. What would you like to happen?
Yeah.
And I would say my wish would be for the black people, and not all of them, but for the black people to get rid of their inferiority complex. They are probably been forced to feel like inferior to whites and all that, which is not the case. They are not inferior to the whites. But that mindset need to change.
But there's a history to that.
Yeah, I know, but that's the point. Yeah. That this is a tragedy. There is a history to that. But we cannot live in the past all the time. We are now at a stage where our country is going through difficult times. Yeah. And we need to put our heads together and work together to make a better living for everybody, because if we can do things in this country where it's going to go well with the grassroots, it will go well with the country. Yeah. But currently, the focus is on the elite since many years ago. That's why we've got such a lot of corruption. And the grassroots are suffering more and more and more. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, you don't have to drive around in a Range Rover and a Mercedes-Benz 500 SL to show that you're somebody. But some people need to do that. Yeah. You know, T-shirts, pointed shoes, a big watch, a Rolex watch, and stuff like that to show you. No, yeah. We've got our people in Namibia are probably one of the most friendly people and well-mannered people that I know. And all my friends coming from all over the world and South Africa, when they come here, they say to me, you know, they really enjoy our people. When they stop at the service station or at the shop, and our people are so friendly. We've got it all. We've got intelligent people, black people, well-educated people. We can make a success of everything in this country. Let's get rid of that complex to think, and always look at the whites, and always look at the past, and white supremacy, and white this, white that. Forget about this white thing. Yeah. Even the land reform issue, we can resolve that issue. But we must stop the blame game. Yes. We must stop the blame game and stop blaming others and start, you know, I want to tell you just one quick thing. Afrikaner, I'm an Afrikaner. Yes. Afrikaans speaking. During the Anglo-Boer War, in the 19th, in the previous century.
Yeah.
In South Africa. The English came and their last resort to get the Boers, the Afrikaner, to hand over and to stop the war was, and I think it was Lord Milner who issued that instructions, and they started to burn the farms and to rape the women and to take them into concentration camps. When those guys came back to their farms, they were nothing. There was nothing. They were burned down. Their wives were in concentration camps. Some died. Children died. And they came back afterwards, the British government, and they came to the farms and they were going to the guys and say, okay, this is a war. It's now over. What can we do to assist you to build up this farm again? And the guys said to them, go to hell.
Yeah.
We don't need your money. You've demolished all this, you've broken us, you raped our women, you killed our women and our children, and you killed some of us. We don't need your money. Take your money and go. We will do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And then they started to work hard. And they became something and somebody within not too many years. And I think we must have that attitude.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the German government for restitution and for this to this and for that to that.
Yeah.
We must decide, let's take hands. I've always said it, that the white people in this country had the privilege. We are privileged. There's not even a question. We had a good upbringing, schools. I went to university. I came back. I had a good job, and all that. We had it, and the majority of the black people didn't have it.
Yes.
But now, what must we do? What must I do as a white man? I must now go and say, guys, I've got the experience, some experience in certain sectors. I've got the experience. Let's work together. And let me not educate, but let me help you to gain that experience and to use my experience for your benefit. Not because the black man is stupid, not at all. But let's use the experience of the white people. And not only the white people, there are a lot of black people who's got the same experience and even more experience.
Yes.
Let's use that experience and put our heads together and work for the benefit of our country. We must succeed, and we will succeed. And that is the only reason why I'm still involved in politics. Is I'm not saying I'm playing any sort of a role, but I'm trying to behind the scenes mostly these days. So, but we've got the people in the country, the most wonderful people. We've got all the opportunities. We are only 2.5 million people. But the first thing we must do is get rid of corruption and get rid of the Chinese. Then we can start to do things correctly.
Indeed. Mr. Mudge, there's a lot that we could have talked about today, but time doesn't permit it for today. But I will still invite you back to the show. There's still a lot to talk about, but I still enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That is Henk Mudge. He's President of the Republican Party speaking to us on the evening review tonight. I hope you enjoy the interview. Good night.